I've seen a lot of superhero movies, and The Amazing Spider-Man is without a doubt one of the most difficult movies of the genre to review. I know a lot of people thought this movie was great, and some who thought it wasn't very good. This movie was largely received in a good way, and I think it's safe to say that the praise this movie gets is very much based on the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. Everyone compares these movies in their heads. Everyone. I'm here to ask, is The Amazing Spider-Man good only when compared to the Raimi trilogy, or is The Amazing Spider-Man good as a film? As a standalone film? Well, let's start with something positive. Spider-Man looks fantastic. He's never looked better on the screen. I was amazed when I found out that this entire shot was CGI. The stunt work seems to blend well with the CGI, and I just wish we got more of Spidey just web swinging because, truth be told, that was the best part of the film. Andrew Garfield is a great actor. I think he's far too pretty for this role, and I don't believe for a second that someone who looked as good as him would get bullied, but nevertheless, Andrew is very good at getting the expressions dead on, and I think, had his character been written better, I'd be even more impressed with him. The romance for me, I'm sorry, it just didn't work. Andrew and Emma bounce off each other really well, but this relationship that we're meant to be buying doesn't really go anywhere. They never go on a date, they don't really know each other very well, it's just them wanting to suck face for the whole movie. That's not really the romance that I like because that is plain and simply shallow. There's really no explanation as to why this insanely pretty girl likes Peter Parker all of a sudden. She just does it because the plot needs to move forward. I don't care if Emma is a better Gwen Stacy than Kirsten Dunst was a Mary Jane, that doesn't make me like it nor forgive it. Here's something I think The Amazing Spider-Man has tried to do with its audience and what it has failed to do on me. At least be better than the Raimi Spider-Man films. This doesn't work on me because I don't care about comparison. The reason I don't like The Amazing Spider-Man has nothing to do with the Raimi films. It's because, as a standalone movie, it just doesn't work. So Spider-Man finally jokes and he has a laugh when he fights, but my god is it awkward. I didn't laugh once during this sequence in the film. The only time I laughed at his jokes was in the trailer, and that's because in the trailer, the comedic timing was dead on. Here they're just kind of talking over each other.
If you're gonna steal cars, don't dress like a car thief. You found my weakness. It's small knives.
Just let me go.
Is that a knife? Is that a real knife?
Yes, it's a real knife.
My weakness, it's small knives.
Just let me go.
Anything that
Spider-Man's trying really hard to be funny, and I'm just not laughing. I feel awkward for him. I don't care if this Spider-Man is closer to the comics because he cracks jokes. He's not funny here, so why is that a good thing? So many people defend this movie saying that it's much closer to the comics, but you know what? If you don't execute it well, then it's a missed opportunity. Peter Parker cracks jokes, but they're not funny, so why is that a good thing? He makes the web shooters, but we don't spend any time with him making them, it just goes by in a second, so how is that a good thing? We see him ordering his costume, but the next shot he's Spider-Man all of a sudden, so how is that a good thing? They mention his parents, but then that gets forgotten after the first hour, and we never go back to it, so how is that a good thing? Peter Parker is getting with Gwen Stacy, his first girlfriend, but they don't go on a date or really have much in common, they just like each other because they do. So how is that a good thing? Simply because it's there? Simply because it derives from the source material? That's not a good thing. Superhero or comic book movies have made this mistake in the past. You can't just throw something in from the comics and expect us fans to like the movie because of it. Unless you actually do something interesting and worthwhile with it, then it's just kind of there. And before you flood my comments section with hate, my point here is that almost everyone is judging this movie as a comparison to the Raimi films. The second one of these points come up, like Peter cracking jokes but they're not funny, always gets followed up with, at least he's cracking jokes at all, Tobey Maguire never did that. Everyone needs to, for the love of God, forget about the Raimi films when it comes to The Amazing Spider-Man. Okay, so Peter Parker is a super smart kid, just like in the comics. Oh wait, no, now he's a skater. Okay, I guess he can be both. Oh wait, no, now he's cocky. And he has a hidden past, and he dresses like an ordinary guy and is relatively attractive, but for some reason people still bully him for no reason whatsoever. Oh wait, no, now he's a photographer. Oh wait, now he's a scientist. A damaged teenage boy. A relatable, enduring character. Someone who's kind. Someone who's disconnected from his aunt after she loses her husband. I mean, people say that this Peter Parker is closer to the comics, but none of these personality traits that are established in the movie have any time to play out, so why is that a good thing? I'd rather have a consistent character than one who seems to change every 10 minutes. And then on top of that, I don't like this Peter Parker. I've heard many people say that he's closer to the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and I disagree. The Ultimate Spider-Man Peter Parker was an enduring, relatable character trying to make the world a better place, who was surrounded by tragedy. But unlike this movie, he was consistent, and I always liked him. This brings me on to my next point. One of the most important elements to a superhero movie is that your protagonist be likable, and in Peter Parker's case, relatable and enduring. They tried to do that in this movie. They really tried. But the simple fact is, Peter Parker isn't very likable here. He acts like a jerk to some people when it's not actually their fault, he's just in a bad mood. I made a promise to your dad that I would leave you alone to keep you safe, which is why I left you at your own dad's funeral and dumped you when you came over to ask where I was. So yeah, that's why I put you through all that shit. I know you're deeply upset, and for that I'm sorry, but it's okay, we'll get back together in a few weeks. Okay, so you made a promise to her dad. That doesn't mean you couldn't have stood beside her at her dad's funeral and held her hand or been her shoulder to cry on, and then broken up with her another day. Any normal person would have given her the support she needed to get through something as horrible as that. Then when she asks why you weren't there, you break up with her on the same day as her dad's funeral? Nice one, Peter, I'm really starting to like you. And some people have accused me of being way too hard on this character because he's going through a lot of shit in this movie and I don't understand simple human emotions. I'm supposed to relate to Peter Parker and agree with the decisions that he makes because they're supposed to be the decisions that a normal teenage boy would make. There are times when I actually think I'm starting to like Peter Parker, but then that's just an example of how the character keeps changing every 10 minutes. I don't like him, then I do like him. Then I don't, then I do. And ultimately, the movie ends with me not liking him because of the way he treats Gwen. He'd be relatable if his character wasn't changing every 10 minutes, but his character does change every 10 minutes, so what is there to latch onto? The second you find something to relate to, that part of his character will be forgotten about by the end of the movie, so that doesn't work either. The Lizard uses the same plan that he used in the comics, but it's such a stupid plan, and it was always corny to begin with. Then to make matters worse, while Rhys Ifans is a good actor, Dr. Kirk Connors gets such terrible treatment in this movie. This ended up becoming a really rushed villain plot, and any of the humanity in Dr. Connors' character from the comics that made him sympathetic is gone here. What annoyed me most when watching this film was genuinely wondering if I had fallen asleep through a scene or two because, by a particular point, he's suddenly willingly the bad guy. There's no build-up or character arc that makes this turn believable. It comes completely out of left field. That and more parts of this film just don't make sense. Like this guy. Where the hell did he go? Now I know a lot of people will tell me that this movie was edited to death, and that there are loads of deleted scenes that compensate for this rushed narrative and bad pacing, but that doesn't make me like the movie anymore, because if it ain't in the movie, then it ain't in the movie. All that it does is make me wonder why the hell these scenes were taken out, especially the ones that humanise Dr. Kirk Connors, and the scene that supposedly reveals that there's actually more to Peter's origin than he's aware of. They played a bunch of audio clips from that scene in the trailer, which implies that it's a bloody important scene. And on that topic, is it just me or does anyone feel conned by these trailers? The untold story. Not really, we've seen it before, only a few minor details were changed. But this is essentially the same film as the 2002 film. Now I know I said I'm not comparing to the Raimi films, but when a trailer advertises itself as the untold story, you have to ask yourself after seeing this movie, what was untold? Clearly any stuff about Peter's parents and the secret to his origin were taken out at the last minute, and I feel conned by the trailers because that was false advertising. Which is why, all in all, this movie feels like a big fat waste. The only reason to go back to an origin we've seen before again is because there's a specific news story to be told if you are to follow the rest of the series. People are saying that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 will be better, and quite frankly, I think it's got a much better chance than this does because we don't have this pointless setup weighing the movie down. We can just jump right into the story in number 2. People also tell me that this movie was setting things up for number 2, so I should be less harsh on it. But I didn't go to see a setup movie, I went to see a good movie. This is the same problem I had with Prometheus. Why make me buy a ticket for a movie that's just advertising the sequel and doesn't work as a genuine film? This movie developed a serious case of what I like to call originitis. The originitis spread throughout this movie, and as such typical origin movies do, they gave me an ending that makes it appear as if we just got to the good bit. I had a disagreement with Sonic the Hedgehog 1, who in case you don't know is one of the most difficult fanboys I've ever had to deal with on YouTube. And when he was confronting me on why I don't like this movie, I gave him a list and he just kept ignoring my points and claiming that I'm a Raimi fanboy. Again, people think it's always about the Raimi films. It's always in their heads. In case that guy and anyone who agrees with him happens to be watching this review, no, I'm not a Raimi fanboy. Yes, I like the first 2 Spider-Man movies, but I'm a Spider-Man fan in general. I read the comics, watch the animated series and all that. There are some things that work in the Raimi films for me and some that don't. But I think a lot of people seem to think that there was a war going on here, between Raimi fans and Webb fans, but there really isn't. Like a lot of people, I was completely on board for The Amazing Spider-Man. I was so hyped for it. I thought Andrew Garfield was a great choice, Emma Stone is a great actress, and the things that they were putting in this movie sounded great, aside from going back to the origin. Maybe a small part of it was hyping the movie in my head too much, but looking at The Amazing Spider-Man as a movie, as a standalone movie, this is poor. I'm actually shocked at how many people think this is one of the best movies of the year. I expected this movie by now to be considered one of those superhero movies that just went horribly wrong, like X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's just all over the place. I guess I can turn my brain off, but I don't like to tell people to do that. It feels like nothing but setup with the occasional action because we need action somewhere in a Spider-Man movie. The pacing is off, it has some of the laziest writing ever, things are forgotten about, and worse, the movie expects us to forget about them too, and things are taken from the source material but nothing of significance is done with them, so they're just kind of there. This is not a good movie. And I don't get any pride or joy out of disliking this movie. I don't like giving a list of things that cause this film to upset me. I won't force anyone who likes this movie to change their opinions. After all, maybe you find it entertaining. But for me, The Amazing Spider-Man is just one big letdown. Cheers for watching, guys, and as always, if you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel.